Hi everyone, Debbie here from My Holistic Bliss. So this morning's bite-sized bliss is a more yang style practice or more kind of energizing, stretchy practice to try. I'm going to go through some different variations for a particular posture that you may have come across before if you've done a yoga class or kind of a stretch style class, the child's pose, and some different positions that you can try to change where you feel this posture. So in this morning's Rise and Shine yoga, we did a twist and bind themed class. And to achieve some of the twisting postures, some of the binding postures, it can help to move our body in different ways to help make these postures more accessible and feel easier to, or kind of feel better to come into. So the child's pose, often used as a resting posture, but it doesn't always have to be a restful pose. It can be quite a stretchy, releasing posture actually. And I'm aware that actually for some people with the knees, different variations can actually not feel that restful. So I am conscious that this is not always the best posture for everybody. So try these variations out and kind of modify to make it suit your body in the best way possible. If it feels good, embrace it, go with it. If it's not feeling quite right, then just see if you can adjust your body slightly differently. Try these different variations to make it work for you. So we're going to start with a more traditional way of coming into the child's pose. So from a kneeling position, I would encourage you or recommend you to take your knees to quite a wide position. You could always pop something under the knees if you feel like you need a bit more support. And you could even pop something between the hamstrings and the lower legs to close the gap a little bit there. So if you find that actually sitting your hips back towards your heels in this way is not accessible for your knees, then add extra support, a pillow or two, just to close that gap, or a blanket or similar. So take the knees as wide as possible. When the knees are in a wider position, it allows more space for the hips. It allows more space for the upper torso to get a little bit closer to the ground, feeling comfortable. So we would bring the chest and the head down towards the ground. And again, like I was saying about using props to kind of make it more comfortable for you, if getting down to the floor and bringing your head to the floor is not a realistic option for you, then grab a bolster or some pillows, something that you can prop yourself up onto, or even rest onto a chair. So if you don't want to sit your hips all the way back towards your heels, you could have a chair in front of you and you could rest your body onto the chair instead and still achieve a similar kind of position. So propped on a chair, propped on some pillows, all coming down to the ground. We would try and walk the hands out to the front. You can have more of a bend in the elbows and prop yourself up a little bit higher if that feels better, or we can try and extend the arms out to a fairly straight position, forehead resting onto the ground. To make it a little bit more active, so if you want to kind of stretch and release out the shoulders a bit more, then I would encourage you to lift your elbows up and come up onto the fingertips. So by lifting the elbows, we're making this a slightly more active position. It requires a little bit more support from the rest of the body to hold you in this position. You can still take the head to the floor, or you can keep the head raised off the ground slightly. And you'll notice that by lifting the elbows, it changes how the posture feels. So it can feel different in different parts of your body. So that's the kind of more traditional way of doing it. Some other variations you can try is bring the knees a bit closer together and come into more like a fetal position. So forehead towards the ground or onto a prop, and reaching the hands down towards the feet instead. To feel more stable in this position, it's often better to have the knees a bit closer together so you can prop your abdomen onto your thighs instead. It does change the kind of the placement of weight a little bit, so you'll feel like you're a bit more head heavy. So adjust your position and lift yourself up if that doesn't feel great for you. So if you want to be a bit higher, prop the forehead up a little bit and then reach the hands down towards the feet. So that again feels more restful for the shoulders. So the focus is a little bit more towards the lower half of the body now, the back of the body, the hips, the knees, the thighs. So it changes the position and takes away the element of stretching and opening out through the shoulders. So great if you've got anything going on in the shoulders and you want a more relaxed position for the upper body. So there are those variations. Then we can add a twist. So from an all fours position, knees underneath the hips, and you can take the knees a bit wider if that feels more comfortable. Take your right arm, give it a little bit of a stretch up first, and then slide it under and across towards the left side. Bring your head down to the ground if you can, or onto a pillow, so that you are facing towards the left side. So this right arm is sliding as far under towards the left as you can. The left hand can either stay here if that feels more supportive, or we can make it a little bit more active by stretching it out to straight. Or another variation, and one that we were doing quite a bit this morning because of the practice that we were doing in Rise and Shine, you can take your left hand behind your back, either rest it onto the back, or you can wiggle it round towards your right hip or thigh to encourage the shoulder blades to move a bit closer together and open out through the chest, the armpits, the front of the shoulders. And then maybe even lean your hips slightly towards the right to intensify that stretch. There are some other variations you can try as well. So if you release that left hand down, slide the left leg back so you're resting onto the toes. So you're now balancing on your right shoulder and your right knee, and lift the left arm up. So that adds a slightly more dynamic, bigger twist. Really good to try the twisting variation if you spend a lot of your day hunched over a desk or standing over and rounding your shoulders, because it encourages you to bring the shoulder blades a bit further back, draw them back and stretch out through the front of the body. And we all tend to spend maybe a little bit too much time hunched, looking at a screen, looking at a laptop. So it can be a nice way to just open out and change the direction. So disrupt bad postural habits that you're perhaps getting into through your daily life, your work. So that's the option with the twist. And then you repeat the same thing on the other side. So again, you would come into an all fours position, lifting the left arm up this time, take a stretch up, and then slide it under and across towards the right. I'm not going to come all the way down because I'll block the microphone, but take that left arm as far under and across towards the right as you can. With your right hand, it can stay where it is if that feels more supportive. You can make it more active by extending and stretching out, resting the fingertips onto the ground, or we can add that cross behind the back to encourage the shoulder blades to move a little bit closer together. Or for that deeper variation, we can extend this time the right leg and lift that right arm up to come into that bigger variation of the twist. One more option. So if you are feeling particularly tense around the shoulder blades, but also around the front of the body, if we change the position of our arms, it can change where we feel it. So coming back to where we started with the knees a little bit wider, creating more space for the hips and for the torso. I've got some props that you can use as well. So you can do this on the ground, or you can raise your elbows up a little bit. So without props, you would come onto your elbows, walk them as far forwards as you can, bringing your armpits closer to the ground so your hands are going upwards, and we can either rest the forehead on the ground or let it settle as close to the ground as you can, and either bring the hands and just rest them on the back of the head, or palms together, reaching back towards the shoulder blades. And the aim with this is to try and walk the elbows as far forwards as you can so that your hands can then sit back towards the shoulder blades, or as close to the shoulder blades as you can. So pushing the armpits down so we're opening out through the front of the chest. If you find that difficult to achieve on the ground, flat, then you could use some blocks or a stack of books of equal height, so about the width of your shoulders, and you might need to kind of adjust how far forwards, how far back they are. And this time we would place the elbows onto that prop. There should be enough space for your head to sit between. And you would take the hands back towards the shoulder blades with your elbows raised. And you'll find that with your elbows raised, you could do this off a chair as well. You could pop the tips of your elbows off a tabletop or a chair and reach the hands behind. You might find it's more achievable to do from something that's a little bit higher. And that will get between the shoulder blades, around the front of the body, particularly around the armpit area in the front of the chest. So there are some different ways of practicing the child's pose, some different ways that you can change the position so that you feel it in different parts of your body. I hope you're enjoying these bite-sized bliss practices. I will be back again on Friday with some recommended spring yin poses because we are officially still in spring, although I feel like we're creeping a little bit closer towards summer now. So there will be a couple of postures for you to try to help you de-stress, unwind and release tension. Do let me know how you're getting on with these, if you're trying them, and if there are any kind of particular movement patterns, postures, meditations that you would like me to cover in the Bite-Sized Bliss, then I will try and include that in my routine for each of the Bite-Sized Bliss practices. So I'll add this to YouTube as well, so you can either view it through my email subscriber list or through my YouTube channel, My Holistic Bliss. So I hope to catch you online again soon. If you'd like to find out more about my online classes, then head to my website, www.myholisticbliss.com/online. Have a good day. See you later.